start out by talking about your home. And I know, Vincent, you grew up in Staten Island. Why don't we have you start right there?
I'll go back further than that so you can...
Hold it real close.
I'll go back further than that so you can maybe get a little better understanding of where I come from and what I'm made of. Most of the Italian families that came to America in the early 20s were people who, from the impoverished part of Italy, Sicily, and the Reggio Calabria area, and they came to stay, and they came to make a new home for themselves. Some families did not. There were some families who came here, put everybody to work, and saved the money, and what they wanted was to go back to Italy and buy a piece of land. You know, the hunger for the peasant for land, but they could never make it there. They could make it here. My father's family was one of those. My grandfather called his family together and said, listen, we're going to America, and we're not to stay. We're going to stay 3 years. We're going to all go to work, make enough money to come back. The Sperandas are going to be landowners back in Italy. And so they did. Now my father, age 11, and his older brother Patsy, 13, wanted to stay. So they said to their father, look, Father, can't we stay in America? It's so nice here. We can get a job, we can go to school. So I said, hey, family's going back. But Pop, it's so nice here that they're up. The family is going back to Italy. The whole family gets on board a ship. The ship is sailing out of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We've got all the lines. Just before the gangplank gets taken down, my father and his brother, the gangplank, and disappear into the crowd. The family doesn't know. They're in the ship someplace. What did you do? 11 and 13 alone in New York City when it was a really tough time. And he said, we went to the Catholic church there, we just said to the priest, our family left us. I said, you mean you were lying to the priest and you're going to confess it tomorrow? But he said that. He told the priest, we're just going to say, could the priest put us up tonight and give us something? Tomorrow morning we'll go look for a job. And the two of them, 11 and 13, signed up as cabin boys on a ship that was going to San Francisco, but the Panama Canal wasn't finished yet. They were going to stop in Panama, they go over the land, and then get the ship back up to San Francisco. And they, my father said, but from the first day, my brother Patsy was in a fight every day. You know, the crew thought the cabin boy should be used for other than Keller for it. And he said, we're going to jump ship. As soon as we get to Panama, we're going to get off this thing. And that's what they did. And I said, what did you do? They said, we got a good job at a Frankfurter stand. And we had plenty to eat. And we made good money until we got back to New York. My father is now about 14, and my brother is 50. And they did anything, everything, to earn money. He never admitted it, but later on when he became he got a chauffeur's license at age 16 and was able to, in those days, wealthy people didn't order a taxi, they ordered a chauffeured car. And he said that some of his clients were good tippers. He would never admit that he was probably the mafia, but he made out well. Then he met my mother, they married, and so on. I grew up on Staten Island. I was born in Hill's Kitchen there, Lower Manhattan, and by age 3, my older brother Joey was 7 years older than me, and he got hit in the head with a milk bottle. in one of the street fights there. And my mother had just had it. She said, "No, we're not going to stay here." And she had, my grandmother had a house on Staten Island with the rooms upstairs, and so we moved to Staten Island. And growing up there was something entirely different from growing up in the rest of New York City. Staten Island, all the roads weren't paved, and there was a brook alongside our house. And so I grew up more like a country kid, hunting, fishing, and so on. Not the big game, but it was the middle of the Depression. Everybody was poor. The people who say, "Oh, how terrible it must have been," I had a wonderful childhood. I don't know about anybody else. Nobody could lord it over anybody else because nobody had anything. My father had a job. His pay was $8 a week, and kids, I don't know.
This is good. Just keep going.
The boys all were expected to help. There were 8 kids in the family, 4 boys, 4 girls. My father believed in equal gender distribution. And the boys, as soon as you're age 12, your childhood is over. You could get working papers, part-time working papers. Part-time working papers meant that you could work 20 hours a week, but nobody paid attention to that. Every day after school, as soon as you're age 12, your mother takes you by the hand and goes through the neighborhood. Anybody you want to hire, very smart, look at his eyes, he's strong and so on. And my job was in a grocery store. I had a bicycle that my brother put together from the junkyards for $2. And I was to deliver every day after school from 3 to 6, all day Saturday from 7 in the morning till 11 at night, half a day on Sunday from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. My pay was $1.25. And when you plunk that dollar down on the table there, the satisfaction you got out of, you're a 12-year-old kid, but hey, if you put $1 on the table, your father's only making 8. And the other boy is making this and this, whoever added to this, you double your father's salary. And so we grew up early, learning what it meant to earn $1 and how to carefully spend it. My mother let me keep the quarter. For a quarter, on the Sunday afternoon, I could take my brother and I to the movies, 10 cents each, and a nickel big bag of candy out of Woolworths. Well, we were kind of shy kids, and you wouldn't believe that now, would you? But I was a shy kid, and we didn't have much to do dating and so on. First of all, because you're working after school, we couldn't go out for the football team or anything. And so, you know, shy. In fact, I was shy all the way up until the war, when I had my first experiences with the ladies. And I had a family that, you know, my mother and father were very poorly educated. My father only went to the 4th grade, my mother went to the 6th grade. But those were the 2 smartest people I ever met. They put together a family of 8 kids, all of us. Polite, courteous, learned how to do. Everybody did well, never any trouble, never going into trouble with the law and so on. So to sum up, I had a magnificent childhood, and I think that some of the things we had to do might very well be reintroduced today, so that kids get an idea of what it's really like to earn a living and live life. Now, what was the one you wanted me to tell?
Well, do the Eagle's Nest.
The what?
The Eagle's Nest.
Let's join the army.
Yeah.
Let's join the army first.
Okay. December 7th, 1941. I'm a 16-year-old kid. It's a Sunday afternoon. My parent sent me to a store to buy something. I walked into the place, and everybody's standing still. Nobody's talking, nobody's doing anything. And they're listening to the radio. Now, I don't know what they're saying. So I said finally to the class, I said, hey, He said, shut up. President speaking. He said, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And the United States Navy has been bombed and shot and shot. I said, we're at war. I forgot about what I was supposed to buy. I went home, I said, turn the radio on. Radio comes on, and there we are in the war. I said, my brothers and all, we'll all go crazy. Okay, we're going to go join up, right? No, you got to be 18. I said, well, I look 18, don't I? But we were all very patriotic. When the war started, we couldn't wait to get into it. Of course, I had to wait till I was 18 years old. And in New York City, the draft board decided when you would be enlisted and so on. And as soon as you get into the Army, they give you a battery of tests. And an officer sits down with you afterwards and says, hey, Speranza, you did 90 on the mechanical aptitude test. Do you like tanks? I said, yeah. And he said, hey, in radio signals, he said, you like radio? I said, yeah. And he said, and you know what he said in the mathematical, he takes a big stamp infantry. Okay, if you want to get into the fight, that's where you got to go anyway. And I couldn't wait. Get down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and take the infantry training, 18 weeks and so on. And then they give you a furlough and come back for advanced weapons training and this and so on. We're raring to go. The training was magnificent. They sent me to an outfit in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, the 87th Infantry. I said, all right, now we're going to get into the fight. Training, Tennessee, why the hell are we going to get into the fight? One day they told us all, get out there and sit down, there's going to be a demonstration. I've got 3 C-47s. The doors open, you see the parachutes, one after the other. Guys, looking like this. This is my 70-year-old outfit. Jump down, get down on the ground, roll over, pick up the chute, put it in the thing, flip it on the back, double time out to where we are, stand at attention. Beautiful guys with silver wings and shiny, shiny jump boots and all that. Looking, everybody looking clear and deep. Listen, you know what they call a speechless Italian armless? I'll try to use just one hand. The lieutenant comes up, and the men are all lined up, standing at attention and all. He puts them at ease, and he says, all right, he said, by the way, the paratroops were brand new, just getting started. He said, we're looking for a few good men, but you have to have had your infantry training and your advanced infantry training and so on and so on. And we will sign you up right now. Volunteers! Throw yourself out of the airplane. They're hesitating, and he says, and $50 extra jump pay. Signed up, bunch of us. Back to Fort Benning, only this time, parachute training. In the infantry, we walk 30-mile hikes, in the parachutes, 50-mile hikes. In the infantry, you walk every place, in the parachutes, you double time every place. The training was magnificent. You came out of there feeling like you could take on the world, and that's what we were ready to do. And they shipped us to Fort Shanks in New York. Oh, I'll tell you. We had plenty of time?
No. Here's what's going to happen now.
You see, he has an HF. So now he's brought us to a training. He's in the paratroopers, right? He's went through jump school. We're going to pause there, and we're going to let this guy tell about Breckenridge, Minnesota, or whatever you want to start with.
High school, and you're gonna eat now. There. Ms. Merle. There.
Okay, I was born in Hankinson, North Dakota,
Hankinson.
April 22nd, 1923. To save you the math, I'm a little bit over 90. From there, I was 2 years old. We moved to Breckenridge. My dad went to work for the Great Northern Railroad. I went through high school in Breckenridge. 1940, we won the Minnesota State Championship in basketball. And Moorhead was one of the teams in the region at that time.
You beat us, huh?
We played 33 games that year, and we lost 3. One to Crosby Ironton, one to Wapaton, and one to Fargo in a Christmas tournament. But in December 7th, 1941, I came out of the movie theater, went over to the pool hall to play a game of pool. Everybody standing around the radio, and I wondered what was going on. They said Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor. And I had to ask where Pearl Harbor was at. And they said out in the Pacific, and I wondered, well, what's everybody worried about? That's so far away, it's never going to affect us. But the next day, a friend of mine and I went down to volunteer, and they wouldn't take us because I was 18, I guess he was about the same age. They said, we've got too many 20 and 21-year-olds that we've got to take before we even consider 18. So I went down to Glenwood, Minnesota, took sheet metal training. After 2-3 months, they shipped us out to Bremerton, Washington, which is just outside Seattle. And we worked on ships that were coming back from Pearl Harbor. They'd been damaged, and those were the first ships they wanted to get repaired because they had trained crews that would get on them and take them back out to sea. So I was out there for a year doing that, came back in December 1942, volunteered for the U.S. Army Air Corps, and they said I'd have to get a draft release from the draft board in Bremerton. So I wrote for that. Nowadays, you just send a fax out or even call them on a cell phone. But I sent a letter out asking to be released from the draft board out there, and I got it the afternoon of December 24th, which was Christmas Eve. I waited till after Christmas, went back to Minneapolis, said I'm ready to join the Air Corps now. And they said we closed all enlistments on December 15th, 1942. But you can get in the Navy if you want to. Well, I didn't want that. So I went home and I worked on the snowplow for the Wilton County Highway Department. And in March, I got a draft notice indicating I should report to Fort Snelling. I went down there in first part of April, spent a week down there, and my birthday was coming up. And I couldn't imagine what the Army was going to do the next day, whether they'd have a big cake with 19 candles on it, or whether they'd give us the day off. Well, the morning of the 22nd, at 4:30 in the morning, some PFC shakes me and says, "You're on KP." And I said, "Have you looked at the records? It's my birthday today." He said, "I don't give a damn if it's President Roosevelt's birthday, you're on KP." So I was disillusioned with the Army right from the start. From there, we went down to, well, first of all, I went down to Fort Snelling with some kid. He heard about the paratroops and he showed me the bulletin. It was for young men with wanting a lot of action, and paid an extra $50 a month. So I said, why don't we join that? And he did. And we were at the orientation program at Fort Snelling, and the officer, after presenting his program, he asked if there's anybody who wanted to join the paratroops. So I raised my hand, and he took a set of papers out from the stack he had and set them aside and said, "Is anyone else?" And nobody answered. I turned around and looked at the back of the room, and his friend I went down with is sitting there grinning. Yeah, orientation program was over, and I went back and I said, "I thought we were going to join the paratroops." I said, "I got to thinking it over, it could be dangerous." So they took me and shipped me separately down to Toccoa, Georgia. And I didn't sleep all the way down, thinking that if I sleep and miss my getting off point, I'd be AWOL and I'd probably get shot at sunrise. So I stayed awake for 2.5 days on the trip down there. Unknown to me, there were people getting on the train all along the way that were also going there, but you couldn't tell if they were in civilian clothes. We got down there, and from there we were shipped over to Camp McCall, which is in North Carolina. Spent our basic training there. Then was shipped to Fort Benning, had 3 weeks of jump school. And of course, the guys that had already jumped, they told you all kinds of scary stories. And one of the stories was this fellow that had jumped, his chute hadn't opened, and he's falling. And as he was going down, there's a little old lady coming up, and he says to her, "Do you know anything about parachuting?" She said, "No." "Do you know anything about gas stoves?" And for 5 days, and you had to complete 5 jumps to get qualified. Those kind of stories were told every day. From jump school, we went back to Camp McCall, spent another few months there training, and then in January, we shipped to Camp Forest in Tennessee for combat training. And I was in the 17th Airborne at this time. There was a new division they were forming. But while we were in Tennessee, Angio in Italy was going on. Both sides were losing so many men that the U.S. was trying to get replacements for the men at Angio wherever they could find them. So they pulled all the paratroopers out of the 17th Airborne Division and made the 517th Combat Team out of that group. And we were left May 17th from Hampton Roads, I guess it was, for Italy. And we got about 3 weeks. We were saving for till the 31st of May, left on the 15th of May. 31st of May, we landed in Italy. But a week before, while we were still on the high seas, the Americans broke out Anzio and headed toward Rome. So instead of us ending in Anzio, we were shipped to Naples. We spent 3 weeks fighting in Italy, and then on August 15th, jumped into southern France, around Limoux and Frascati, a few other towns there. We were supposed to prevent any reinforcements from coming to the beach. The invasion from the sea with the 3rd Division, the 45th Division, and I can't think of the other division, were coming in by ship, and our job was to be 30 miles back from the sea, stopping the replacements coming in from further in France. Well, we stayed in southern France until the end of November. We were in the Maritime Alps. The invading infantry that had come in by ship were going up the Rhone Valley to meet up with the Normandy force. And we were supposed to stay in the Maritime Alps, preventing any German troops from coming from Italy. And it was to prevent the flank of the group going up the Rhone Valley. Well, then on November 30th, we headed up to Marmolon-le-Grand in northern France, the 82nd and 101st coming back from Holland, and we were supposed to spend the winter there, and so was the 82nd and 101st, get replacements and get new clothing and new equipment. Well, everybody thought the war would be over by Christmas, so there was no big rush to do anything. We thought we'd be there all winter long.
What year was this now?
1944.
1944. Can we stop right there? Sure.
Okay, we're in December 1944 with Merle now. And we're going to go back. Now, this guy has just completed paratrooper training, and you're going to pick it up from there.
Folks, in my day, a stick of paratroopers was 18 men. The C-47 had 2 sticks, 18 men on each side. And that stick was pretty much your team, the guys that you were with Bunter. We were in Camp Shanks, New York, and while we were at Fort Benning in the training and so on, and talking, the Army every once in a while would feed us what they called spaghetti. And I used to complain and holler, and I used to say to the guys, listen, you call this spaghetti, if we ever get anywhere near New York, I'll take you home to my house and let you taste some real spaghetti. And, you know, talk. But when we got stationed up at Camp Shanks, that was like 50 minutes from my home. And so they said, all right, Speranza, what about all this, I said, okay, you know, let me call my mother. So I called my mother on the phone. I said, Mom, I said, you know, we're going to be able to come home for a day. She said, oh, how nice. I said, Mom, listen, you know, I used to tell these guys, you know, that what the Army was giving us is not spaghetti. That I show them some real spaghetti. Can I bring the guys? She said, sure. She said, how many? I said, 18. She said, 18. How much time have I got? And I said, oh, it'll take at least 3 or 4 hours before we get there. And she said, oh, plenty. Bring them. I brought 18 guys in my house, and my mother, a very small, modest house. She had tables going from the kitchen into the living room up to there. She had chairs with a plank between them, but they had it set up for 18 guys. And my guys were just delighted. What a meal! My mother and you know, I had 4 sisters too. They all helped, but they put on a fantastic meal. And about the end of it, my mother comes up there. My mother, by the way, was a Sicilian, you know, tough woman, and the most wonderful person in the world. She said, "When was the last time all of you wrote your mothers a letter?" She says, "Don't move." She goes upstairs, and she gets a whole bunch of paper and envelopes, brings them down with a bunch of pens, pencils, and she said, "You too?" I said, "Okay." And we all wrote a letter home, and she said, and I'll mail them. She didn't trust anybody. She took all of them and mailed. One of the saddest moments in my life was when I got home. And my mother said, "Vinny, all those nice boys, those little that you brought home that night, how many of them made it?" You know what I had to tell her? I choked even saying it to her, because she so admired all these nice young guys from all of the parts of the country and so on. But okay, I went overseas on the Queen Mary. What an adventure that was. The Queen Mary had been converted to a troop ship, and it had little compartments that were designed for, you know, 2 people when you get a room on a ship, on a cruise. And they had 15 bunks in that little room. The 3 walls had, you know, the pipe bunk with the canvas laced to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On this wall, 5 on this wall, 5 on this wall, and there's the door to the bathroom. But 30 guys were assigned to the room. So 30 men's gear is in there, 15 sleep on deck, and then the next night you switch, back and forth. The problem was, there was only this much space between the bunks, and if you got a fat tub, his face, canvas was in your face, and you had to holler and argue all the time. Hey, listen, you're heavier than I am. You sleep down here. Let me sleep up there. But the challenge was to get fed. Well, we got 11,000 troops on the ship, plus 1,000 British crew. And you start in the morning, get up at 6 o'clock, and then by 6:30 you get online with your mess gear. As the line went, down C deck, up 3 deck, to 3 deck, up 3 deck, and down the stairs, and this and that. By about 10 o'clock, you got to the food. And British rations at that time were pretty bad. You know, the sausages were 50% breadcrumbs, but tea, no coffee. And you stood up at a rack, and you ate, and then you got on the line to wash your mess gear. C deck, 3 deck, 3 deck, 3 deck. And it took you till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which by that time you had to get online for the dinner time. We spent most of our time when I was you're young and healthy, it doesn't matter. I'd hate like hell to have to stand in line today. But the Queen makes it in 4 days. Ordinarily, we took 7 days because she zigzagged, you know, all over the place. The Queen went without an escort. If a German sub had caught us, the whole damn caboodle would be down. But so she zigzagged, and we were off the coast of Spain one time, and the only seaport in England that could handle the Queen is Southampton. And naturally, Southampton's on the Channel side, and the Queen wasn't going to go there. The Germans had control of that whole area. And so they docked off Scotland, and in Scotland, small boats, lighters, you know, to take us ashore. And they took us by train down to a place called Hungerford, some Quonset huts and so on. And they billeted there. And the next morning, the lieutenant lined us all up and so on. All right, everybody willing to go on a dangerous mission, take 1 step forward. So we all take a step forward. Okay, he marks it down on the paper and dismissed. What was happening was, you know, the 101 had gotten beat up in Holland. They're on their way out, and you know, you don't find out this until later, but they were thinking of jumping us in to reinforce the jump. It never happened. Every morning he'd line us up. Everybody ready? Dangerous mission? Yeah, we signed up. Nothing. It wasn't until October, November, that we were flown to France. And
What year was it?
44. We were flown to France. This is November 44. We were flown to France and joined the 101st Airborne Division. I'm a replacement. And anybody in the service will know what I'm talking about when I say that it's the strangest situation in the world. The combat man. Nobody talks to you, you know. Until you prove yourself in combat, you're nothing. And you try to be friendly, but at the same time, you hold these guys in awe. These guys have been seen battle and so on. And we were supposed to get recruits, replacement, ammunition, food, winter clothing. They had big sons. But they didn't expect right away. They had training programs and so on. 3 weeks after I was in the outfit, 4 o'clock in the morning, the lights come on in the barracks. Sergeant comes in. Hey, drop. I almost said something. Drop something and grab your socks. We're moving. It's so crazy. The ground's frozen. We'll all break our legs. He said, you're not jumping. You're going in trucks. Oh, well, okay. But I'm a machine gunner without a machine gun. A lot of guys didn't have rifles. A lot of guys didn't have any kind of equipment. They found out later that 11% of the 101st Airborne that went into Bastogne were unarmed. They didn't have arms. Let me tell you how we made out. So we're saying, hey, Sergeant, I don't have that. He said, make a list. We're going to stop on the way up. Take care. I had no coat. I had the little beanie you wear under your helmet. Without that, your head freezes with a steel pipe. But I had a sweater and a jacket, a field jacket. And that's all most of us had. That's all most of us had. No galoshes, no gloves, no nothing. And we get in those trucks, and you can't believe that ride that night. Cold as hell, distant snow here and there. We were so jammed up in those trucks that you couldn't move. The guy who happened to be smart, lay down, got to stay there. The rest of us, those of us that were hanging over the side, we had to stand up the whole damn day. If you moved, you were stepping on somebody. And you can imagine what it's like when they didn't stop to relieve yourself either, and your helmet and pouring all over the guys, cursing and hollering. It was a miserable, cold, rotten ride. But we got to Bastogne 8 hours before the Germans, which gave us time in the 501 for the first out of town to dig in where the Germans were going to hit. The guys that had gotten beaten, you know, if you know the story of the Battle of the Bulge, 25 German divisions came out of Germany, and they hit 3 of our divisions, the infantry outfits that tried to hold it, but they were green troops, and some of them were hired troops and so on, and the Germans went right through them. And so they were all leaving Bastogne. You know, we thought it was crazy. Hey, the fight's up here, and these guys are all pulling back, but they were all going back, and only the 101st. We just go up to the guy and say, hey, you're going back, you don't need this. I took the rifle right off his shoulder. And, hey man, you got any grenades there? You don't need it to take a grenade. I got a machine gun, one of the M50s, and I got 2 belts of ammunition. A lot of the guys got a rifle. We were looking for coats and everything, but they didn't have anything either. When the battle actually started, most of us did have something to shoot with. And you know, I remember distinctly before we got there, I had a trench knife in my boot. And when we were walking into town, the lieutenant says, all right, 5 yards apart now, and watch out for snipers. I said, Lieutenant, what am I supposed to do? I got a gun. He said, good complaint is for hands. He pulls out his 45, shows me the back. He's got no clip in there. He didn't have anything but an empty 45. But we scrounged around, and by the time the battle started, we had some things. Now the artillery boys, they were in bad shape. They didn't have much ammunition, and like he was describing to you, the Germans were hitting on all sides, and they had to be pushed back. What McAuliffe did is he formed a mobile force of artillery boys, and the 705 tank destroyer battalion was in there with us, and so on. And so wherever they hit, he had this mobile force hit it. So, like he said, the Germans never really hit us all at once at the same time. If they would have, we'd have been in bad shape. But you know, I don't want to go into the blood and guts thing, but it was cold, it was miserable, the food was, it was nutritious, but it left something to be desired about your physical health. We had some kind of factory. They found a factory that had burlap bags, and so they sent it out to the front for some of the guys to wrap it in there and wrap it around their feet. I was the luckiest man in the world because just before I left the barracks, I had a pair of wool socks hanging on the thing there. I grabbed them and stuck them in my pocket. That meant that every night I could take off my wet socks, you put them inside your shirt up against your belly, and by the next morning, they're dry. And so I was able to change my socks. We lost more men to trench foot than we did bullets. Put out of commission. And you know, the fighting was severe all at once, and bullets flying everywhere. And then it dies down, and the artillery takes over. And they start, and indiscriminately, by the way, without targets, what they were trying to do, when they found that they couldn't penetrate any part of the line, after they surrounded us, they decided to sit back and just bomb and shell. And, you know, there's no rear area when you're surrounded. Everybody was under attack. And like I was trying to say up there, how do one parachute division hold out against 7 German divisions with 3 of the Panzer divisions with the newest tanks? They had the Mark IVs and the Tiger Royals. And well, it's what's in the heart of the individual soldier. The guy who digs the hole in the ground today. I don't give a crap what you say. You're not getting by me. And you can bring your damn tanks and I'll knock down my hole and you get a grenade in the tread if you can. But no matter what they did, they never set 1 foot in that town. We lost a lot of people from bombs and shells and
The town is what now? Bastogne?
Bastogne.
Okay.
And we were running it was getting real bad. The artillery boys were told they had 2 shells a day that they could fire, and if the Germans had attacked in force on the 23rd, they might have penetrated, whatever it was. The 23rd, for the first time, the sun came out. The sky turned blue. You know, we were hollering all the while. The Germans are bombing us every night. Why the hell are they flying and the Americans aren't flying? Where are our planes? Well, the weather over England was impossible. That's why it doesn't happen. And so, on the 23rd, the sun came up. We looked, we see his shadow. Oh my God. And
3rd December, is it?
December.
December 23rd, 44.
Oh, December 23rd. And all of a sudden, 6 P-47 Thunderbolts. I'll never forget this scene. The nacelles on the planes were painted red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue. They came out, and they started diving down all around us. We jumped out of the foxhole and yeah, give it to them. It's still being shelled. We were just like kids at Christmas, watching these things dive. Blue smoke comes, black smoke comes up, dive down, strafe all around, and we're going, yeah, yeah. And then the C-47s, 134 we found out. Right after that pattern broke through, and we resupplied, we said, boy, now, we're going back to a nice camp where it's warm, we're going to sleep in the room and in the bed. Well, they decided that the 101st and the 82nd were going to be the spearhead to kicking the Germans back into the rest of the way into Germany. And we said, don't you think we ought to have a little rest or something in between?
Okay, I think at that we're going to give you just a little...
Give you a little rest, and we're gonna pick it up, and we were talking December 44, we left off at Merle. You pick it up from there.
Vince is dragging out this war, and I know we've got to get ready for the Korean War, so I'll try to speed it up. From Bastogne, we went, at the end of January, we went to Alsace-Lorraine, spent about a month there, came back in March to Bourmelon-le-Grand, where Eisenhower presented the presidential citation to the division. From there, on April 1st, we went over to the Rhine River to a little town called Neuss, which is just across the river from Dusseldorf. There, I was assigned the mission to go up on top of a 12-story elevator on the Rhine River to try to locate a German 240 millimeter gun rounds at night, and then that would be it. Another fellow and I went to the top of this elevator along the river and had an aiming circle where this took an azimuth to the flash of the gun, and had a stopwatch where we timed it from the time we saw the flash till we saw the heard the shell go over, and then take that information down, and the next morning the Air Corps would try to locate that gun. Well, when the war opened up and was the Germans, 325,000 surrendered there, they found out this big railroad gun was right near a railroad tunnel, and it would wheel out, fire 2-3 rounds, and wheel back in. That was the reason we never located it during the nighttime, or by aerial observation during the day. On April 25th or so, we started south, and along the Autobahn, we got as far south as Munich, and the war ended. We continued on down to Berchtesgaden and Bad Reichenhall, some of the other places down there, and in the everybody was building it in a chalet and did nothing but fish and hunt for about 6 weeks. Then came back to Eppenau, France, and from there went into Berlin on occupation duty and left for home from Le Havre on December 2nd and landed in New York City December 15th. From there, went to Camp McCoy, got discharged, came home Christmas morning, 1945. Spent about 2 weeks in Breckenridge, went out to my old job in Bremerton, Washington, had the same supervisor out there that I'd had before I went into service, and he was complaining. He said if the war would have only lasted another 6 months, I could have had my house paid for. And another lady at home was telling me, well, I'm so happy this war is over, now maybe we can get butter again. Well, you know, you're a little disturbed to see that that was the attitude, and I know that wasn't the general attitude, but those are the people that you resented, to think that that's all the war meant to them. They couldn't lose their overtime pay now, and couldn't get their butter before, now they'd be able to do that again. I got married, came home in July 4th, 1946, enrolled at NDSU, and that fall, school started October 1st. Because of the polio scare, they thought crowds during the summer were responsible for polio, so they started school late in the fall. And then graduated from there in 49. I went through the summers, went out to Bismarck, went to work for the Bureau of Reclamation, handling power coming out of Garrison Dam. And one of the early assignments was to come over to Fargo, locate a substation site that would not ever bother the city of Fargo as far as development. Came over, went south of the boulder a few blocks, then went west on gravel roads and picked out a substation site. We bought it for $50 an acre, and now that site is sitting at 45th Street and 32nd Avenue, and they're building all the way around it. So it has had some effect on Fargo, which was one of the requirements. Don't ever pick a site that will bother the city of Fargo.
Okay, but during the television interviews, you told about the episode with the Germans wanting you to surrender. You want to go back, because these people, some have not heard that story, or if they heard it, it was probably not able to hear everything. So tell that story about the Germans saying, okay, we're going to ask you to surrender now.
We were surrounded at the time, and we were on the south portion of the encirclement, and we see 4 Germans coming along with a white flag, and under the rules of war, you don't fire on someone carrying a white flag, which indicates surrender. We thought they were surrendering. When they get to the colonel's headquarters of 327th Glider Infantry, and they said they were demanding our surrender. Well, the colonel said, we'll go talk to the general. And the 4 men were kept at headquarters of the regimental position, and the colonel went into Bastogne where General McAuliffe had his headquarters. The colonel said the 4 men came into our position and they're demanding our surrender, and they're giving us 2 hours. That's the ultimatum. After that, they will shell and bomb us out of existence. So when the colonel got through telling the general that, he said, oh, I'm nuts. And they sat around talking for a while, and I guess a half an hour or so went by, and the colonel of the 327th reminded him that there's a 2-hour ultimatum on this surrender. If we don't respond in that time, they're going to bomb and shell us. So the general said, well, we should get an answer back to him. What do you think we should tell him? Colonel from the 327th said, well, I thought your first response to that was a pretty good response. General hadn't remembered it. He said, what was that? And the colonel said, you said nuts. So he had his clerk type up to the German commander, nuts from the American commander. He took it back to the headquarters of the 327th, and the 4 men were still there. And the ranking major of the group said, do you have an answer? And he said, yes, we do. He said, is it oral or written? He said, it's written. So the German major took it, and he could read and speak almost perfect English. He read it, and it said nuts, and he said, what is nuts? And the American colonel said, that's the same as go to hell. And the officer for the German group said, you'll be sorry. And they both saluted each other. And the American was sorry afterwards that he had saluted him. He thought, I should have just let him return. So they took the white flag and went down the road and out of sight. We never did get shelled or bombed after that, but I don't know if it was just a threat or they didn't have the ammunition or what. But, that was the end of that little episode. But the words then became famous. I've seen them posted out here at the West Acres, and I've seen Fargo South. There's a wall that's got this message on there. And also the Christmas Eve greetings we got from General McAuliffe that year. So someone makes a little comment like nuts, and suddenly it becomes world famous.
Okay, now, there was an actual request, there's something about Eagle Nest, and you want to tell that story now? We're ready for some more of that Italian stuff. Huh?
If I don't tell the story about the scotch, my table.
Yeah, we got to talk about this bottle that's sitting here. Right to the mouth, there you go.
After the, after the breakout from Bastogne, we were still getting very heavy fighting around a town called Bouffalise. It's where I got hit, and I was flown, because there was a piece of shrapnel close to my brain, I was flown to England to be operated on, so, but they found it was not touching the brain, there was no problem, they just pulled it right. Now, while I'm sitting there, by the way, clean sheets, bed, and food that wasn't greasy and heated, and the nurse comes in and she says, I'm about ready for discharge. She says, you know, there's one of your bad boy Yanks down on the second floor there, and I said, what's his name? She said, Joe. I said, Joe Willis? She said, yeah. He's down, I didn't know we were both in the same hospital at the same time. And he said, by the way, this is a long story.
We're ready for it.
She goes down and tells him, hey, Vince Brand's on the next floor there. And Joe comes running up and says, hey, I didn't know you were here. I said, yeah, I got hit outside of Oofruley's. He had been here earlier. And he said, when are you going to be discharged? I said, I think they said tomorrow. They said, no, he said, get sick. Make sure you don't get discharged until 2 days from now when I get discharged. We get discharged together and we get our recuperation leave. You know, after you're wounded, you get 7 days recuperation leave when you leave the hospital. And you can go any place in the United Kingdom that you're concerned. So when the nurse came back, I said, oh, this hurts again, and my leg is bad. And she said, I know. I said, I don't want to be discharged till Thursday. And she said, I know. Okay, that's when Joe's being discharged. I said, yeah, well, you know. So they let us stay. And then now the Army gives you $7.50 a day or something for hotel. We chose Edinburgh, Scotland, for our 7 days of recovery. And the Army had a hotel there that they put you up at and so on. And Joe and I decided that, by the way, the war was still going on heavily, and I know I'm making excuses for the story I'm going to tell you, but we had this attitude now that, hey, let's go and really live it up. We're going back to the war. And so when they gave us our pay, our back pay, we, at that time on the black market there in London, you could get 3-to-1 for American money, 2-to-1 for British money. French money wasn't worth anything. So we took our back pay, and we went to town, and we doubled it, so and came back. See, the Army gives you 2 copies of your travel orders. One is your identification. The other you turn in at the bus station or train station or airport to convert your money. So we went to the Red Cross, and Joe typed out 7 copies of our travel orders, and I signed the captain's name. And we went to a bus station, trade our money. We said we want American money for that, and go back and triple it, and go back and double it. We ran our back pay into $1,200, which was a fortune in 1944. And then instead of paying for the transportation to Edinburgh, I don't know if I'm going to be talking about this. Is the statute of limitations over for being put in jail? Well, we went to the Air Force. We said, hey, you got a plane going to Edinburgh? By the way, the Air Force, the 8th Air Force.
I say Air Force good.
Yeah. The Air Force couldn't do enough for us. You know, they screwed up in Normandy. And they scattered our people all over the place. I'm sorry. But in Holland, picture perfect. They did everything right. And so when we said, you got a plane, they said, where do you want to go? We said, Edinburgh. They said, absolutely. So we saved the transportation money. When we got to Edinburgh, instead of going to the hotel, we went to the Red Cross, 50 cents a night. We saved $7.50 a day that the Army gave us. Now, we had this nice room at the Red Cross, and a nice Red Cross lady taking care of the room. And Joe said, "Rap." And he had one of those little flat irons, and he pressed, we always looked sharp. We pressed our uniforms, also looked sharp. And Joe said, "Well, now we gotta go find something to drink." I said, "Yeah." But hey, wartime Europe. None of the bars would sell us a bottle, and even at the bars you were rationing. You know, the officers got a liquor ration, the enlisted men did not. And so we went all over the place trying to buy a bottle somewhere. No such thing. But one of them said to us, "You know," she said, "the Johnny Walker factory is right down on the River Clyde on the other side of Edinburgh."
Wow.
We said, "Really?" She said, she said, "You know, go at night, there's the night watchman, he's a veteran, and maybe he can help you." And we said, "Right here." We go down to the watchman, we had a musette bag filled with cartons of cigarettes. And the supply people were very kind to us. You know, they gave us way more than they were supposed to. We had, I don't know, 15, 20 cartons of cigarettes. So we go down to the docks there where the Johnny Walker factory is. And as we're coming down the rim, he's limping, you know, he's hurt. The night watchman comes out with a cane and he says, "I know what you're after, laddies, but I cannot help you." We said, "No way, we just heard you were a veteran. We want to talk to you about what was the fighting like in North Africa." And they cut a cigarette on the table. He said, "Look," he says, "it's all rationed and accounted for." He said, "Every box is numbered, and we get inspected. I cannot do anything for you." Put another carton cigarette on the table. He says, "Look," he says, I would like to help you, but..." Put two cartons. We said, "Look," we said, "you know, maybe you can find a broken box or one that got split." And he said, "Look," he said, I one more carton, and the last carton I put on there was Chesterfield's. And he looked at the last carton and he said, "Chesterfield's, my favorite cigarette. Let me see what I can do." And he goes into the thing there and comes up with a box. And the carton has 12 bottles of Johnny Walker. So he opens it up and starts to take a bottle out. We said, "Oh my, really?" He said, "It's better if the whole thing is missing." So we took the box, put a couple more cartons of cigarettes on the table, and we walked out. We had 12 bottles of gold. That in 1944, that was gold. We put it under the bed at the Red Cross, and we said to the lady who took care of our room, "Listen, this is to be got in with your life. No one is to look under the bed or search the bed or so on. Understand?" "Yeah." The Joe says, "Now we need some transportation." I said, "Yeah, let's go buy a car." So we went out to the field. He had 3 wrecks on the thing there, and he said only one of them was running. And the one that was running was a saloon. You know what the saloons are, where the driver sits like on the outside, there's a windshield, and then the back of the car is like a parlor. They had flower vases inside there with curtains at the windows. We said, "That's running, we'll take it. How much?" He said, "It's 400 pounds, laddie." He said, "But look, I don't want to sell it to you. You don't have any ration coupons for petrol. How would you feed it?" I said, "What would be the sense of buying a car? We can't get gasoline for it." So we said, "Okay, let's go back." And we said, a taxi driver, "Come here. How much you make a week?" "Oh, I pulled down about 2 quid. I said, "You're full of crap. You're lucky if you make $1. We're going to give you 10. You just have your cab out here day and night in front of us." "Oh, right-o, Yank, right-o." So now we had whiskey, we had transportation, and we got ready to go on the town. And we had 5 of the most glorious days you'll ever think about it. we go to a dance hall and put a bottle of Johnny Walker on in the middle of the table. And all eyes focus on it. And we just pick out, let's say, the two prettiest little girls. Hey, would you like to go and have a drink? They come over and we'd have a party, and if we're running low, we'd send the taxi guy, but go back to the room, tell Alice the word is Klondike Blue. If you say Klondike Blue, she'll give you a bottle. We had the password, and we bring another bottle. So, this one, we're having a nice party, and we're getting feeling good, and Joe says to me, I wonder if it's true, what do the Scotsmen wear under their kilt? I said, I don't know. He said, why don't you go find out? I said, yeah. So I looked around the room, I looked for the smallest guy I could find. He was leaning over the table. I went out there and I lifted up his skirt. I said, hey, Joe, nothing. Boom, he hit me. I went sliding across the floor, under the table. And he came running after me. Yeah, I didn't want to do that. But you don't do that to a Scot. You got. I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. I apologize. That's a terrible thing for me to do. I said, come have a drink with us. He said, Johnny Walker is it? So he sat and had a drink. One of his buddies over there, a big one, come over and he said, Yankee said, if I tell you a good story, do I get a drink? We said, yeah. So he says, there are the kids in the room? Okay, I'll clean up the language. But at any rate, he said, there's a story of Jeannie girl and Johnny boy who were about to be married. He said she lived on one hill and he lived on the other. And down in the valley was the general store. And Jamie Walker says, I think I'll buy some material for a new kilt. In honor of the occasion, he goes down to the store. He says, McTavish, he says, I want 3 yards of material for a new kilt. McTavish says, McDougall, he says, you're in rare luck. You're in rare luck because I got 3.5 yards of material left on a boat that I'll give you at a bargain price. And he says, I don't need 3.5 yards. 3 yards is all I need. What will I do with the other half a yard? He said, well, you could always cut off the half a yard and make a scarf for your girlfriend, Jeannie. A bargain price, you say? A bargain price, I say. All right. He takes the material, goes home, cuts off the half a yard for the skirt, for the scarf, and wraps it around himself, looks in the mirror, he says, God, that's beautiful. I think I'll go show him his girlfriend, Jeannie. Throws on his overcoat, as he's darting down the hill, he doesn't know it, but the temporary kilt slips off. And he goes and knocks on the door and says, Jeannie girl, Jeannie girl. She said, what do you want? He says, there's something I need to show you. And she says, you know it's bad luck to see the bride at the wedding. He said, I know, but this I need to show you before the wedding. And she comes to the door and he throws open his overcoat and says, how do you like it, lass? And Ginny gulps a little bit and says, it's nice. He says, doesn't want half of it, lass. I'm going to do the half a yard at home to wrap around your neck. I said, you earned your drink, man. He gave me a drink. From Scotland, back to reality, back to the war. And he told you most of what happened.
Tell them about why you had to rake the road. It's not a terribly long one. Why you had to rake the road when you stole the whiskey?
What'd she say?
About raking the road and stole whiskey or something she's talking about.
Remember when you had to rake the road?
Oh, no, that one I refuse.
Okay.
No, I can't tell that one.
Okay, but you wanted to talk about the helmet. The helmet. Some of these people were.
They already heard it, didn't they?
No, some people over there couldn't hear it.
Okay. The third day of the battle, my friend had got hit in both legs, and because we were surrounded, you know, we couldn't get the wounded out. The wounded were all laying on the floor of the church and the seminary across the street there that Murray was talking about. And we had no blankets for them, so we pulled all the curtains and things from the houses, or bedspreads, whatever we could find, wrapped the guys in. And my friend is laying there in the middle, and I had been sent to get some batteries, and I went to the church to find my friend. And I see Joe laying there, and I said, Joe, how you doing? He said, I have nothing, a couple of pieces of shrapnel in my legs, I'll be out of here tomorrow and the next day. I said, oh, well, that's good, Joe. I said, hey, come on back. Geez, I need you. He was my assistant machine gunner. I said, I need you. Come on back. He said, yeah. I said, Joe, can I do anything for you before you leave? And he said, yeah, go find me something to drink. I said, where the hell am I going to find you something to drink? We're surrounded and covered, no supplies, anything coming in and out here. He said, go look in the old taverns. I said, Joe, the taverns are all burned down. Go look anyway. Now, by the way, you know, for your foxhole, buddy, you'll do anything. Okay, and I went down to the first tavern. I walked down the road. By the way, I have since retraced these steps. I've been back to the church and walked down the way. The first tavern was nothing in there, broken glass and all. I went down the road a little further to another tavern, and when I yanked the handle, beer came out. There was still beer on tap. Got on my helmet. The same helmet that you use in the foxhole, you know, swished a little snow in it, and filled it up with beer. Back up to the church. I said, Joe, I got some beer. He said, oh. He sits up, and I'm pouring him beer from my helmet. Give me some of that. Give me some of that. And I'm feeding a bunch of guys, yo, beer, like an old mother cow. I ran out. They said, go get some more. I said, oh, go get some more. I go down to the tavern, fill up the helmet again, come running back to the church. Standing in the doorway of the church is the regimental surgeon, Major. I'm a PFC, by the way. He said, what the hell are you doing, soldier? I said, sir, you're bringing aid and comfort to the wounded? He said, you stupid jackass, don't you know I've got chest cases and stomach cases in there? You give them to me, you'll kill them? Get out of here before I have you shot. Yes, sir, yes, sir. As I started, put that helmet on. I was freezing enough already. Now I'm wet and freezing. And then I ran back to the foxhole. End of the story, right? No. 65 years later, I go back to the Baston for the first time. And my daughter's with me, and these people I met took me out to the battlefields, and then they showed me exactly where each company was dug in, and where my foxhole was. And then the whole scene came back, something I hadn't thought about for years. The carnage of that first morning, you know, they killed a lot of them, but they killed a lot of us too. And I fell apart. So my daughter took me out and said to the two guys, listen, Marco, my father's seen enough today. Let's go back into town. And on the way back into town, I said to the guys, hey, can I take you to lunch, please? Let me take you to lunch. And we go to lunch, and I ordered 3 bottles of wine. I said, I'm going to change the mood here. I want to start laughing again. And so we're drinking wine and telling stories. So they're telling me about Iraq and so on, and I was telling them, and I told them the beer story. And while I'm telling the story, they're going like this. You were the GI who brought beer and the helmet to the church? I said, yeah. They said, you, during the battle, you brought beer to the church? I said, yeah. They said, man, don't you know you're famous in Europe? What are you talking about? They said, wait a minute. bring us 4 bottles of airborne beer. The waiter comes with a tray. He's got 4 bottles of beer and 4 little ceramic bowls in the shape of a GI helmet. And on the label of the bottle, you can look at that, you can't see it here. It's a paratrooper with a helmet full of beer, feeding it to people. And they said, nobody thought that was true. Thought that story was a rumor. And, but a Belgian brewer decided one time to just, well, let's honor this mythical GI anyway. And he made airborne beer. Now that's the end of the story.
Now, one thing that you discussed for the television people over there, I think you need to talk about that too. You went into some of the death camps, the Russians, I mean the Germans had, with the people, the Jews, and you actually were there, one of the first troops into those camps. You want to tell that story a little bit?
Yeah, there's a picture of the area in the book. It shows the dead lying around and those that couldn't get up, they just lying in their filth. But the reason our commanding officer wanted to get the local people living in the little town right near there to come through so that they'd never be able to say that it really didn't happen, that it was all propaganda. So he brought the townspeople, the adults, through camp and made them actually carry and bury the people that did not survive, so that they would be a testimonial to the fact that this really did happen. It wasn't hearsay. Something else I'm going to mention, he's talking about the price of things. The Russians had never been paid during the entire war. They were without salary. And at the end of the war, the Russians took our invasion currency plates and used it to print money for their own soldiers. And they were told that they'd never be able to bring anything home. They could buy what they wanted over outside of Russia. And we'd get cigarettes for 50 cents a carton, and the Russians would pay us $300 a carton. Or some GI would put on a MP armband, drive down to an intersection in Berlin, sell this Jeep to a Russian for $2,500, and he'd drive down the street with it, and then his buddy would stop him at that corner, want to see the papers to the Jeep. He didn't have any, so they'd take it away and go to another part of town somewhere and sell the Jeep again. But these Russians came in to the Tiergarten, which is the black market area down in Berlin, with satchels full of brand new bills, all bundled up in little packets. And the guys that would go on 3-day passes to Antwerp and other places would come back with Mickey Mouse watches or cheap $10 watches, sell them to the Russian for $1,000. And the Russians didn't want any watches that you couldn't hear. If you could hold up your ear and it was tick-tock, tick-tock, they thought that was a good watch. So that's what you had to have if you wanted to have them buy the watch. Another thing, I spent a 3-day pass in Paris. We stayed at the Grand Hotel. It was 40 cents a night, white sheets. We just couldn't believe it. Glenn Miller's orchestra was playing in the hotel dining room. Glenn Miller had been lost over the North Sea at some time, and Tex Beneke had his orchestra at that time. But you remember all the good times. That was the nice thing about being in service. There were many good times, and I guess that's where the term Band of Brothers comes from. It was a great group to be associated with.
Okay, I think we've had a story being told by these people from when they grew up and where they grew up and how they went through life. We didn't get all the details at what they did in the last few years, but you got a little bit of idea of that. But how about questions now? You must have a question or two. Let's get at least a couple of questions. I can bring the mic out there or whatever. You can talk real loud. Who's got a question you want to direct? Yes. Loud and clear.
Of all of the movies and shows and interviews, which one or which ones do you find the most accurate?
Band of Brothers.
That's what I think.
Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
They went out of their way to really portray events, especially the Bastones were very, very accurate. You know, they injected some romance, which did not take place there, but they pretty well showed the miserable conditions and the continuous bombing and shelling and so on. You know, I can't attest to what they did in Normandy or Holland, but the Bastogne part was the part that I was in. Very, very good, very good.
The Spielberg, in making that movie, insisted on all the equipment being exact. And one thing they had to do is get the Corcoran Boot Company to go back and make original boots to the original specifications that they made for the
It's
paratroops.
a Cochrane jump boot.
And my wife knew a major down in Fort Bragg, and she somehow knew where there were some boots left over after they made the movie. They had enough boots on hand that some were never used. So for my birthday a few years back, she bought me a brand new pair of Corcoran jump boots. And I treasure those because you just don't have them anymore. And you get on the internet, they're just for a jump jacket, they're offering $1,000 now if it's an original from World War II. But I wore mine that summer of '46 out shocking, and I wore out the jump pants and the jump jacket there. It's amazing what the collectors are paying for some of this stuff now.
Tell us about your books. You have 2 books, right? Give us a little.
Well, basically, the same material, same war in both books. One has got less pictures. That one's got a lot of pictures in it. And I started thinking after this one was printed that I had forgotten to say this, that I'd forgotten to say that. So then I went in and took a lot of the pictures out and put more narrative in this book. And I still think of things every day that I should have put in. You know, when you're 90 years old, you're starting to lose it. And there's a lot of things I couldn't remember when I was writing this book, but I still know that I could write a third one on the same subject and probably come up with a lot of new material.
Okay, you have a book that's underway. Tell us about your book.
My book is not just a war book. The people that interviewed me the first time before I contemplated writing a book wanted to know about my early life, the events leading up to it. I told you some of them tonight. And so my book is the story of my life. The war part, of course, is a big part of it, but an awful lot of things have happened in the last 3 years, like meeting the Hansons over there and so on, that are in the book that have nothing to do with the war. Well, indirectly they do. When I first started going back to the battlefields and so on, I ran into all kinds of things Can I tell them one?
Yeah.
I told you I became a school teacher after the war. I taught American history for 20 years in the classroom. And I got an email in 2004 from one of my former students who said, Mr. Speranza, we're having a reunion in New York City, and we want you to come, you know. I said, sure, okay, I'll come. So when I get there now, these kids that I knew at age 18 when they graduated are now all 58 years old. They're all senior citizens, and you know, some I recognize, but most of them I didn't. So a guy comes up to me and says, Mr. Speranza, remember me, Buzz Altshuler? I said, give me a hint, Buzz, it's been 40 years. And he said, I was in your history class, he said, and he said, you remember when you used to bring that trunk in, when you showed us all the German helmets and gas masks? I said, oh yeah, I remember that. I used to do that for all the classes. He said, well, he said, Mr. Speranza, you inspired me. He said, I went to West Point. When I graduated from Curtis, I went to West Point. He said, I became an officer. I went to Vietnam, 2 tours in Vietnam, and he said, I'm still in. I said, you're still in? I said, where are you? He said, Fort Bragg. I said, oh, the 82nd. I said, what do you do there? He said, I'm the commanding general. He became a 3-star general. And he said, and I want you to come out here and talk to my young troopers and so on and so forth. I said, sure. And I went out there, and he sent his wife to pick me up in a big black Mercedes, you know, with the general's stars there, taking me in there. Here's the general cooking steaks on his grill for the PFC. And he still calls me Mr. Speranza. And when the visit was over, I said, Boss, I said, that was wonderful. I loved it. I said, but listen, I did all my fighting with the 101st. Where's the 101st? He said, oh, they're Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's from me. Why, do you want to visit there? I said, yeah, I'd like to visit there. He said, the general there is a good friend of mine. I'll write him a letter, or I'll call him and tell him something that you want to visit, and he'll take good care of you. His name is Petraeus. Yeah, well, okay. 2 weeks later, I get an email. Dear Vincent Speranza, my good friend Major General Buzz Altshuler tells me that you were his history teacher and that you would like to visit Fort Campbell. I'm a little busy in Iraq right now, but come anyway. My chief of staff will take care of you. And, okay. So I get to the camp, and there's a lieutenant there with a car. Sir, park your car here, he said. I'm Lieutenant Coop, and I will take you. I said, oh, okay. He said, shall we go first to your quarters? I said, yeah. So he takes me to the quarters, not a room, a suite. The bed has got the 4 posts, you know, with the canopy on top, the living room, there's no fancy television and so on. I said, yeah, that's pretty new. And then he says, where would you like to eat? The officer's mess or dinner? I said, nah, I want to eat with the enlisted men. And so they take me to like a dining hall. And that was not a regular enlisted man's dining hall, but because I was going to be there, they had enlisted men eating there. They treated me wonderfully, and then they take me to the training area. I have never been in a helicopter, and I watch all these young kids run up and get in a helicopter and, you know, rappel down to the ground there. I said, I was watching. I said, Lieutenant, will you let a civilian try that? I said, listen, I said, you know, I'm in good shape. I could, no, he said, I could take you to the training area where the mock-up tower is. Okay, so we go to the training area, and it's a 60-foot, I think, wooden structure. There were 4 ropes going down, and there's a sergeant at each one of the ropes. And I said, well, you let me try that? He said, you in good shape? I said, oh, yes, I'm in good shape. There was more trouble climbing up the stairs. And I get up to the top of the stairs there, and the young sergeant up there says, sir, you've done this before, right? I said, no, I haven't, but you're going to show me, right? He said, yeah. Nothing to it. He wrap around the ropes around here, they put a helmet on, they put gloves on, and he said, you just kick off the stand and then pull the rope forward and act like a brake and come down. So I jump off and come down, and the lieutenant's taking pictures of all of this. The last picture they have of me on the bottom is going like this. He gets a phone call. Lieutenant Coop, you and Speranza report to my office. This is Colonel Laffenberger. I said, oh, holy jeez, he's going to get in trouble. I said, Lieutenant, listen, I insisted. I'll tell him. I insisted. You didn't want me to do it. We get into the office, and there's the colonel, 3, 4 other officers, majors are in it, and one female photographer. And as soon as we walked in the door, I said, sir, I said, with respect, the lieutenant had, he said, just a minute. I said, but sir, the lieutenant did not, he said, wait a minute, I understand though that you went down the ropes. I said, yeah, but he would, he said, we think that makes you an honorary air assault soldier. And he pins a pair of air assault wings on my jacket. And he gave me a big hug, and the photographer took pictures of all over the place. And I said, Lieutenant, all's well that ends well.
Put down everything you know and can remember. And I thought maybe 50 pages. When I got through with the book, it's that thick, and there's 900 pages in there. So one thing leads to another. If you put down Christmas Eve, you could probably write a number of pages just on different Christmas Eves you remember. So I would urge all of you to start making a record of what's happened in your lives.
Okay, Bob?
I'd like to announce to these 101st Airborne people that I was in Germany when McAuliffe retired in May of 1956. My job was to maintain his staff cars, which I picked up 2 Lincolns at Cologne for him. One was supposed to go to 7th Army, and he decided he didn't need that one, so McAuliffe kept them both. When he retired, he went as president of the Red Cross.
They've got a square in Bastogne named after him.
Have they?
McAuliffe Square.
I got an autographed picture from him.
If you're ever get to Edinburgh, Luxembourg, which is in the Battle of Bulge, Becky and I were there in 2005. There's a Patton museum, and there's also a beautiful statue of Patton, and the tank is there too. They just built a new museum in about 2004, 2005. One room is, which about half the size of this, is all Patton stuff. And the rest of the museum is all artifacts from the Battle of the Bulge. Now in Luxembourg, we have the American Cemetery, which is the beautiful American cemetery, and General Patton is buried there. 1 kilometer from that cemetery is a German cemetery. You know, it's gravestones, but can you imagine, here we are in the war, and the bodies are buried 1 kilometer apart, the Germans and the Americans in Luxembourg cemetery area there. It's just unbelievable. You need to get over and see those cemeteries. You have not. We are very proud of those cemeteries. Any specific questions really quick? Becky?
I was just gonna tell you, I think, don't you have some stuff in that museum, Vincent?
In Bastogne, there's a museum dedicated to the 101st Airborne Division. It's all 101st Airborne stuff. And my stuff is in there too. There's a display in there of my other uniform and books and Nazi banners and stuff. And also a pipe that I found and carved up.
No, you can go on Google, and with both these 2 names, you can see all the information that's existing on Google on both these guys right now. And this story about the helmet beer, there is a video. You can watch the entire video. He's talking in the video about this whole story. I watched it a few days ago, and everything he just said, he's telling that story in that video. And it's quite a story. Yeah.
I've got a website. It's 517prct.org, and you could spend days and days on that with different stories from all the different guys in our outfit, pictures, our trips back to Europe. I've been to France 7 times, and Germany, and Belgium about 4 times, and Italy a couple times. But these people over there, they really appreciate what we did. I think the only people that don't like us are those in Paris. But you go to any other, go to southern France, you land there, they won't let you do anything. They haul you around to different locations where the battles took place. Every August 15th, they have a 3-day celebration. They've restored a bunch of Army equipment. They have parades and dances. They don't know what water is over there. The tables are lined with wine. My wife and I come home, we have to join AA for a year to get back in shape again.
Gary, would you ever repeat that website address?
Website address.
www.517PRCT, which stands for Parachute Regimental Combat Team, .org.
Okay, I think the time is concluded. Now, they're going to be around for just a few minutes, but as far as any formal thing, this is it. Thanks a lot for coming.